Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Fitz Design Team Training Tuesday webinars. Actually, it's Thursday, and we appreciate those of you who were originally signed up for Tuesday. I have been under the weather. I had no voice. I just was down and out, and I really needed a couple days to recoup so that I could be back and strong again to bring you this webinar. So we appreciate you holding tight until Thursday and joining us today. We know it was a little glitch in the schedule, but we certainly appreciate you accommodating a little day off or from recuperation. Anyways, we're really glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited about today's webinar. It's about weddings, not just bridal bouquets, but kind of all aspects of weddings. We want you to help build. We want to help build your wedding business and help you answer some questions. You know, when we get going, we don't always sit down and ask ourselves, what type of wedding business do we want? What are we going for? What are we doing? What are our goals? What are our plans? And so throughout today's webinar, we'll be giving you some suggestions, showing you some beautiful designs, and then when Dan takes over later, he's really going to be asking you some really deep questions that you need to answer to help build your wedding business. It's all good, everybody, so don't get too worried. It's not scary. It's good information that we need to figure out for ourselves so that we can be better florists, better designers, and better business people. So let's go ahead and get started. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me. I know my voice is a little weak, so if I need to speak up, there is a little area where you can type in your questions. If anybody's having any technical difficulties right now, if you can't hear me or you can't see me, this is your chance to go ahead and just type in there, I'm having some problems, help. And then we can get those taken care of before we get started, because I don't want you to miss anything. We have some beautiful designs to show you and a couple fun projects for you to follow along with. So unless I hear back from Jamie that anybody's having any problems, I don't think so. I think we're good to go, okay? So I'm going to go right ahead and start in. Our first project today is a wedding bouquet. You know, when I was doing weddings, when I had my shop, the wedding bouquet was always my favorite thing to do. And I think there's a lot of people, when we ask florists, what's your favorite part of doing a wedding? It's the bridal bouquet. It's really where we get to shine and be creative and have fun and really flex our creative muscle, so to speak. And you know, the styles of the bouquets are really coming around and changing. For so many years, all we did were the tight mass hand-tied bouquets, and those are still very popular, and you know what, they're never going to go away. They're beautiful. They allow you to incorporate a lot of different blooms, but you know, we're seeing different styles come in. We're seeing the addition of more bling, a lot of brooches, a lot of different accents in the ways of foliages and unique items. We're also seeing changes in the styles. We're seeing the crescent and the cascade come back into vogue, which is kind of refreshing to see a new style, a new farming back that, you know, those of us who've been around the block a few times remember doing. And so many of the tools that are out there help us create these bouquets much easier than they did 15, 20 years ago. I can remember having to do cascade bouquets where we had to hand wire and tape every flower, and we don't have to do that anymore because there's so many great products. And that's true with Fitz Design too. We really think about what we're bringing into our line that helps add that saves labor, that has great perceived value. We want to make sure that when you're adding something in, that there's a good value to it and that it's easy for you to use and that it helps you in the process of creating beautiful bouquets. And the bouquet we have here, it really is a simple, just hand-tied cluster bouquet, but we've added some beautiful accents. Now, we all know that those beautiful brooch bouquets are really labor intensive, and although Fitz Design has some great helps for those with our spot-ons and our brooches, we can't always spend the time, or the bride may not have the budget to do the big elaborate bling brooch bouquet, but there's still ways to bring bling and sparkle into your bridal work with other items. And this item is one of my favorites, and I personally think it's one of the best kept secrets here at Fitz Design. So I'm going to let you in on the secret. One thing that I love this product is our bouquet holder. And it comes kind of all collapsed in on itself, and we just expand that and open it up. And each of these is on a very sturdy wire that's still very flexible. And it allows you to add in some beautiful bling touches into your bouquet in really just a few quick, easy steps. And really, that's kind of what it's all about, especially when you have these large wedding parties we're seeing again. You know, the bridesmaids are numbering into the 8s, 10s, 12s again, like they used to. And so something like this is a great way, even if the bride, say, she did have a really large brooch bouquet, but we needed to add that bling into the attendance bouquets. This is the perfect product to do something like that because it's almost all done for you. So you just have to create your bouquet and then add this in. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Another thing we've added in is some of our foliages. They add another layer of that metallic, shiny bling into your bouquet. And this is our lacy leaf. I think it's a great item for weddings because it is so delicate and it does have a few little rhinestone accents to it, and it's very flexible. We can actually bend the leaves and curve them to give them more motion if we want to. It's just a real fun foliage in our line to add into wedding work or really just about anything you need to have some sparkle and shine. And then finishing the bouquet is one of our bouquet wraps. This is another thing that I think is one of the best kept secrets at Fitz. Maybe you've gone through the catalog and you've seen them and you wonder, well, exactly what do they look like? How are they used? Well, this is the traditional way to use it. It is called a bouquet wrap, and it is meant just to do that, to wrap your handle and add that beautiful little accent to the handle. And normally what I would do is I would put this on the back so that when she holds it, she actually gets to see it. Otherwise, her hand would be covering it when she walks down the aisle. But these are great little things. And if you've joined us at some of our other workshops and our other webinars, you've seen these made into a lot of other things. We've made boutonnieres out of them. We've added them into our corsages. We've added them into some of our necklaces. Remember, just because we call it a wrap doesn't mean it always has to be used as a wrap, but this is really what it's for. This is what we brought it into the line for, the main purpose. And then as we always do with our Fitz Design products, we always try to come up with multiple uses for something. But I wanted you to see two of our best kept secrets in action, and I'm going to show you how to use them. So for this project, if you're following along and you're doing the hands-on, and I hope you are, you will have one of the bouquet holders. You will have two stems of the lacy leaves. And we're going to keep this little packing material here because we're going to use that to, when we start gluing, that'll be kind of like our base that we can use to glue on. Because it's that kind of slippery plastic, it's really good to just use to stick your flowers on so that they don't stick to the table. And then also we have our bouquet wrap that we have. This one happens to be Venice. This is our Venice wrap. And we actually have two different sizes of wraps with a lot of different styles in each size. And this happens to be the smaller wrap because I do have a rather smaller handle on this bouquet, but we do have larger ones for when you're doing a little bit larger where you have maybe a stem wrap that's maybe 3 to 3.5 inches round. We do have larger ones, but this is one of our smaller wraps. So we're going to use that, and you'll notice the wrap comes with its own pins, and they are also decorative. They have a little rhinestone at the end, so you want to make sure you don't lose those. So when you start constructing, kind of set those in a place where you're going to be able to see them because we don't want those to get lost. Okay, so we have all our materials, and then we also have our flowers. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put the screen down so you can watch what I'm doing. Get this out of the way here. And if at any time during the webinar you have any questions, if you need me to repeat something I'm doing or you didn't see it, please just go ahead and type in your question, and Jamie or Dan will kind of chime in and tell me, hey, wait, we have a question here. We want to make sure that everything that you're thinking or wondering gets answered, because we're here to help you and to make this easy and fun for you. So you can see I'm doing my designs in permanent botanicals. You've heard it if you've joined us before. There's a couple reasons I'm doing that, but one of the reasons, really, the main reason that I suggest to you is while you're doing these webinars, if you need to get some samples for your displays, this is the perfect time for you to start making your samples. And if you do them in the permanent botanicals, that allows you to have your samples already done for your prom displays, for your wedding displays. So I would encourage you to look at that. I know the fresh flowers are much more beautiful, and they're so much more fun to work with, and they're fragrant. I get that, but you know what? These permanent botanicals are gorgeous, and the quality of them has improved so much over the years that there's no reason why we can't start using these, especially when we want to create our sample boards and our displays for our proms and our weddings. So basically what you do is you just start out, go ahead and, like I said, it comes all wrapped up tight in the packaging. And so we just want to make sure we open that up, because we're actually going to use this as part of our armature in our bouquet. So we want to make sure it's open so we can start laying our flowers on top. I always like to go ahead and spread these out just a little bit. And another feature that I want to point out, what I think is so great about these, again, it's all those details that when Dan and the team are looking at ways to develop products, we look at all the little details. And every other little gem here is flipped the opposite direction. So that way when it goes into the bouquet, not all the gems are facing one way. They have it so it's a whole 380 degree when it's in the bouquet. No matter which angle you're looking at it, you're going to see the beautiful side, because they're flipped back and forth. So I think that was a real clever thing to do, because when we get something in there and it's not facing the way we want, we just want to start turning things. Well, we've already kind of done that for you. So I'm going to lay that off to the side, and we're going to go ahead and just start creating our bouquet. Now, I'm not necessarily going to teach you which way to do it. If you want to do it in a spiral, or if you do it in a lacing, however it works for you, I encourage you to make your bouquet that way. I mainly really want to show you the technique of how to use this product. So just go ahead and you start your bouquet, and you don't want to get too far. You just want to get a few things into the center of it. And you've noticed, even with my permanent botanicals, just like you would with your fresh flowers, it's really important that you prepare all your flowers in advance before you start. Take the foliage off where you're not going to need it. Go ahead and strip the stems, cut them to a manageable length, one that you can work on easily before you start constructing your bouquet. Otherwise, you're starting and you're stopping. You might have to lay the bouquet down because you need to clean more flowers. And it's one thing if you have a little extra one that you thought you needed but then you didn't, and you have to take that off while you're constructing. That's one thing, because we don't always want to strip it completely bare. We want a little foliage on there, but make sure you prepare everything in advance before you start working. That will make the process go a lot faster. Believe me, it really does cut down on the time. I've got just a few of the flowers in there. It's kind of like the center of the bouquet. I'm going to come and I'm going to just go ahead and decide about how far I want these to be elevated above the actual bouquet. I want them to be able to stand out, but I don't want them to be hidden inside. So you kind of figure out where you want that to be, and once you have that, then you just go ahead and start to roll this armature part over the stems. If you have to, just go ahead and start moving these outward a little bit so that they're not going to crush your flowers. If you need to, you can come back in and add a few more stems of blooms into the bouquet and continue wrapping. Now it has formed like the handle of the bouquet. You still have the ability because it's not clamped so tight around the handle that it's squeezing the stems. You still have the ability to maneuver and move your stems into where you need them to be. Then once you have that, you just continue on with your bouquet the same way you would without those in there. You just continue building your bouquet. Filling in wherever you need to fill in. Don't worry, these move really nicely, and you'll be able to move them back into the center. So don't get too worried that it's where it's got to stay. There is some flexibility in this. And I'm kind of taking my cue on this bouquet from the Pantone color of the season, Marsala. It's kind of got those reddish, deep tone pinks. It's kind of a fun color. And I think we're going to, at first when I first saw it out, I thought it was a little dull, a little dark. But I have been inspired by all the different designs I've seen on Facebook and on YouTube who've really taken that color scheme and have just really done some beautiful things with it. So this is kind of my interpretation of the Marsala color of the season, with the tones of reds and burgundies and pinks all together. And you know what? It really does look beautiful for spring. It's not too dark, not at all, especially when you add that light pink into it. Okay, let's see here. Let's go right here. So as you can see, the bouquet is coming together. We have our little, I guess I'll call them spikes for the lack of a better term right now. And all I have to do then is just kind of move them around into the bouquet where I want them to be and where I want them to kind of have their own little place. You can see by, let me get this little piece off here, the handle of it kind of just gets, it just kind of meshes right in with the bouquet. It's really not too cumbersome to hold on to. It doesn't make it difficult at all to work with. When I first saw these, I thought, oh, the stiffness of the metal would make it very hard to work with, but honestly, I couldn't have been more wrong. It actually adds a really nice firmness to the handle and makes it very secure feeling. So it actually helps strengthen that handle of the bouquet, especially if you were using some of the more delicate flowers like your tulips or something. It really helps just give a little more substance to it and firms it up a little. So it's actually kind of an aid in the handle as well. It just makes it very comfortable to hold. So right now what I want to do is, because I don't want to, even though I have some more things to add, I want to kind of secure this. So I use my waterproof tape. I just cut off a section of it. I don't want to do too much. I just kind of want to secure so my blooms are held where I want them to be, just around, because I don't want it to come undone. So I'm just kind of going around the handle. I have another little piece of green here that I'm going to snip off. Don't need it. It's in the way. So now that just kind of holds it for me so that I don't lose my shape or my form here in my bouquet. Now I want to add my lacy leaves. And when they come right out of the packet, they're very flat, obviously. So we want to give them some movement and some life. I don't want them to put them in there just totally flat. So I might go ahead and contour the leaves a little just by putting my finger in the center and then shaping it just a little. You can see that's kind of made a little cup out of it. Just gives it a little more realism to it. Maybe I want to curve one up. And then again with, I don't want it to be just so flat. I want to give it some movement. It's a little more organic feel, even though it's a metal. It's it's kind of a fantasy type flower foliage. I want to give it a little bit of an organic feel by adding some movement to it. So whenever you do that, just make sure you put your finger over the solder point. Our items are soldered. That's how we create these stems. So if you're ever going to manipulate, just make sure you put your finger over that point so the pressure doesn't break the seal or the solder. And then just go ahead and bend and move and twist until you get what the style or the shape you want. I'm going to do that again with my other piece just so I have some movement. A little bit before I put it in the bouquet because it's easier to manipulate it when it's not in the bouquet. I can still do a little fine touching when it gets into the bouquet, but I don't want to have to manipulate it too much because then I might start bruising the flowers and the petals. So I'll go ahead and get that done. Now I can go ahead and add these into my bouquet. And I'll be honest with you, I'm doing this backwards. So I'm watching myself in the camera, so it's a little harder to see where I want to put them. And then one more over on this side. You can see it's just starting to add that bling, that sparkle, that extra layer of texture and depth into the bouquet. We don't want to push these things too far down in. When you're adding that type of bling and you're adding those types of accessories, the last thing you want to do is tuck them and hide them into the flowers. It's, people are paying, that there's a value in this, and you want to make sure people are seeing what they're paying for. I've heard it many times where, people have ordered something and they say, well, I didn't get the blah, blah, blah. Well, it was in there. It was just tucked in so far, or it was hidden by so many foliages and filler flowers that they couldn't see the rhinestones or they couldn't see the feathers. Make sure when you're using these accessories, not just in your bouquet work, but in your corsage and boutonniere work, that if you're going to sell them and add them, that you see them. So they don't always have to be tucked way down inside. But doesn't that add just a nice little extra layer of excitement and movement to the bouquet? Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start to finish it off. So I'm going to take a little bit longer piece of my waterproof tape. I want to make sure that the handle is secure really well. So I'm going to just go ahead and put it back on there and start taping it. Tape it all the way down. And just like any bouquet, you want a nice, clean, finished handle at the end. So I'm going to get it down at least to where the actual handle of the bouquet holder is. Go around that. Oh, I don't want that. They don't need my scissors in their bouquet. I'm going to pull it tight. Now what I want to do, in my case, I'm going to come in with my wire cutters, but in your case you would come in with your floral shears and just clean it off and have a nice blunt, flat bottom to your bouquet. So wherever you have to cut all those to make it nice and even. That one's going to be tricky. One of those stiff ones. There we go. We want to make sure, this is part of our mechanics. We want to make sure that they look nice. Okay, nice and flat. Come back, work my way back up. Now, one thing I'm going to do here, the only reason I didn't do this, normally I take one really long piece of waterproof tape But because the way I'm working and I'm in a very tight area here, I'm actually going to take another piece just so I can show you the technique. But normally I just make one big piece. Next thing you do, go ahead and put the tape on and then flip it over so the sticky side is out. Okay, wrap that all the way down to the very end and come back up, just wrap it. So now you see we have the sticky side out. The reason we do that is this is going to help secure our ribbon to the holder. I don't know if you've ever had this happen. I know I did once, and that was all it took, is when you wrap the satin ribbon around the handle, sometimes the satin is very slippery, especially when it's wrapped upon itself. And if you have one of those brides who moves her hands a lot and holds the bouquet and twists the bouquet, that ribbon can become loose. Even if it's tied on or pinned on, it can start to come loose and start to slip down and unravel. So when you do this, this gives it a really nice secure fit over the bouquet, and it helps add a little layer of protection so that ribbon doesn't start to come undone. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead because I have a permanent botanical and I don't have to worry about water source to my bouquet. Excuse me. And certainly when you make this in a fresh, if you want to cover the entire stem, of course you would wait to do that just before delivery or just before you hand it to the bride so that it's in water as long as it possibly can. Otherwise you would just leave a little bit of the stems that could still be in water. But in my case, it's artificial. I want to cover that up. So I'm going to go this way. Wrap it. So now, see how my ends are covered? Cut that off. And then I can come back and do it one more time because I want to make sure that you're not going to see it on either end or either side. So come back this way. Oops. Make sure you're covering it when you do that. There we go. See now how my end is completely covered? It's completely covered. Now I can come back and do my wrap. Wrapping down. Tuck that up in. Go back up. Pulling very tight. You want to make sure you have a nice secure handle, so you want to make sure it's pulled really tight. I'm actually going to just go ahead and cut off my piece because it's getting hard to work with when it's on the roll. Get that out of the way. Finish wrapping it all the way up. And to finish it off, what I normally do is I know that every bouquet you make has a front and a back, a certain way you want the bride to hold it. And so I take my loop, just like I'm going around, make a loop, bring the tail back up through that loop, and tie a knot into it. It's a nice clean finish to the bouquet. And then I have this little loop here. I usually just cut into a nice little dovetail. That tells me where the thumb is, where she's going to hold the bouquet. That's where her thumb goes. So that's the back of the bouquet. So when she's holding it, it's held the way I made it to be held. I use that as my guide. Instruct the bride the proper way to hold the bouquet, but a lot of times in the round bouquets, we know there's a certain front or a certain flower we have facing. There's always that certain something that we want it to be held a certain way. That is a great way to make sure that the bouquet is facing the way you want it to face and not turned around backwards. Because you're giving her that little cue, rest your thumb on the tail, and that way she always knows it's being held the way you want it to be viewed and how you constructed it. The last thing we want to do then is we want to add our bouquet wrap to the handle. And there's a couple ways you can do this. You know, I love just the way it looks on the handle like that. You can actually pin it so that it dangles down the bottom, so it's like a little medallion that hangs from the handle. That's a beautiful way. You could just go ahead and, depending on the length, you could go ahead and just pin it to the front instead of going all the way around. You can pin it on an angle if it's a longer one that would wrap all the way. So again, just because it wraps doesn't mean it has to go that way. That's traditional. That's the way it was, you know, kind of constructed to go. But there's so many other things and you know what? You can even add these into your bouquet. You could lay these to the top, wire it in, and add another layer of sparkle to the top of the bouquet. So there's a lot of things, a lot of ways that you can use these on your bouquet. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to. They also, you can see they have the little loops. So you just put it on there. Now, if you want to make sure, you know, if you're a little bit concerned, like I'm always concerned that just the hand of the bride, you know, when she's holding it and she's nervous and she's doing this, that it could come loose. So you could go ahead and put a couple little U-glue dashes on the back before you put it onto your handle, and that's going to just add a little extra secure mechanic to it to make sure it doesn't slip and slide. The pins do a great job at holding it, but, you know, better safe than sorry. Let's see if I have some of those in my goodie bag over here. So I do. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to put one right back here in the center. And then maybe one on the ends here. And now I know it's not going anywhere. I love these things, but the hardest part for me always is finding that little tag to get the backing off. There we go. Put it where you want it to go. Just kind of press it down, and now it's going to stay. And I'm going to go ahead and use the pins to the back. Pin right through it. Right into the stems. Secure it on, and it's a finished look because they have the rhinestones on them. And there you have your bouquet. Do we have any questions on that or on the product, the actual bouquet holders, or any of the items that we used? Wow, no questions at all. Don't be shy. If you have any questions or comments, go right ahead. We want to hear from you. Okay, so our bouquets. Now, I deliberately did not finish it because I want you to kind of see. You really don't notice. You would, of course, put some maybe Gaelic leaves or lemon leaves or maybe even just some ribbon loops around to kind of finish off your bouquet. But as you can see, it really doesn't become something that is you know, really noticeable, the armature inside the bouquet. It really just, like I said, it adds a mechanic to it, makes it a little firmer and stronger, holds those flowers nicely upright and in place. So it's not only is it beautiful, it really does help with the integrity and the structure of your bouquet. So if you haven't tried them before, I highly recommend looking into our bouquet holders. They're fun to use, they're easy to use, and they certainly add a lot of bling and sparkle to your bouquets. Okay, our next project we're going to work on then, if you have a bride, you have the groom, and he certainly needs a blingy boutonniere to wear down the aisle. So we're creating one today in our Horizon boutonniere band. They are available in the dazzle and then also in a black, a licorice, that sparkles. So especially if they're wearing those gray tuxedos or the beige and taupe tuxedos or even suit jackets that are real popular now, we have one that will work either way. Whether this is beautiful on the black, but the black is certainly beautiful on those grays. So you have to have your one Horizon. You also are going to need, excuse me, a couple stems of our flutters. The flutters have the little rhinestone gem inside. And then for your flowers, you can use alstroemeria, you can use roses, you can use just some petals from roses if you have those. You can really use anything. And actually what I did for this is I just had a couple extra petals laying around, so that's what I used. So I'm going to show you how to do that, but you certainly can add anything in. You can add a little tiny rose, you can add, and I'll show you how to do that in a little bit here. So let me get my petals here. And a little rose, and we're all set to go. We also want to have some lily grass or some bear grass to add into that, just to add a little bit more movement into the boutonniere. We don't want the boutonniere to be flat. So often when we are creating boutonnieres and when we're doing the gluing techniques, a lot of times our boutonnieres become very flat. And it's important that they have the same depth and texture elements that the bouquet does. That adds life to it. That adds excitement and movement to it. We don't want it to be dull and just sit there. We really want it to come to life. So we want to make sure we add those other elements that bring a different dimension to the boutonniere. So how we start off with this boutonniere, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it on the packing material that it comes in. Just because a lot of times when we're gluing, glue can run all over the place. It's just an easier way to hold on to it because it gives me a little bit, I don't actually have to hold on to the piece itself. I can hold on to the packaging, and the magnet holds it on there very securely. So a lot of times I will go ahead and leave it on there when I'm creating my piece. So the first thing we did with this, now the one thing you could do with this one, as you can see, it has a hole at the bottom. I don't know if you can kind of see all the way through on my black. You probably can't. But it goes all the way through. It's not a solid piece. See? So if you were to wire and tape like a little tiny Tuzzy Muzzy or nosegay, you could very easily just slip that down in there and pull the stems through the bottom, and it would sit securely in this piece very easily. But we're going to go ahead, and you can do this with fresh or the permanent botanicals, it doesn't matter. We can go ahead, I'm going to glue everything right into this, and it's going to just kind of become permanent right in there. So I'm going to take my lily grass or bear grass. I'm just going to cut a couple pieces. And here's where I get my little gluing platform out. Just going to bring that down just a little bit more so you can see. Okay, I've got my little, I'm going to go ahead and on the back side, here, I'm just going to put a little glue on there, just a little bit, just enough to cover the back of it from about there to there. and this is probably the trickiest part of this, is I just want a little bit of glue on the inside. You've heard us say it time and time again in all our webinars, that glue to glue really, really is what helps make the bond. It holds it securely. So we want to make sure I get a little bit of glue down in here. Not a lot, but just a little bit. So I'm just going to let the gravity take it out of the tube and down into that. Now I'm going to come in with my piece of lily grass, bear grass, that I have already put glue on, and I'm going to run it down in there and let the glue to glue touch. I've got a little bit of it coming out at the bottom and a little bit, but now since I have glue inside and I had glue on the stem, it holds nice and securely. I don't have to worry about it completely. And it's not bonded yet. It will move if I touch it or bump it, but at least it's going to stay securely there while I construct the rest of my boutonniere. There's just enough. I wish I could really let you get in there and see. Maybe I can if I get it really close. Just a little bit of glue right in there at the surface, and then it just kind of runs down. You got to be careful. Like I said, this is the trickiest part of this construction, so that it doesn't run out the bottom, but just enough in there so that I have that glue-to-glue contact. Another reason I'm doing that on this is because this is metal, and we've learned, and you've heard us say it, that the glue is best on a porous surface, and metal does not have any pores or anything for it to grab onto. It will eventually dry and secure to a metal surface, but it takes a little longer, and we know we don't always have time to just sit and wait for our boutonnieres and stuff to dry, so we want to make sure we have a good secure base to it. So by putting that in there and letting that run down in there, it just helps make sure that I have that glue-to-glue contact, and then we can sit and let it cure and let it dry to the actual boutonniere backing, the metal of the boutonniere backing. So we're at that point. Now we can come in with a couple of our petals. I want to add some petals to our boutonniere. And so now I'm going to just kind of slide this all the way up because I want to be able to see where I'm going. So you can see I still have it on the back, but it's just a little bit, I have it a little bit raised. And I want to come in, put some glue on my petals. Excuse me. Just going to put a little bit on the back of the petal. Let those sit there for a second. Go back to the one that I put on there first. I'm going to go ahead and tuck that right down inside and press down. I've tucked it down inside of the little cup, the little boutonniere cup here, holder, and I just pressed it down so that it makes a bond. I'm going to come back with the second one, and I'm going to make that one a little higher. So it's actually kind of glued right onto the petal above it. Really all I'm doing is I'm adding color by using the petals. I'm not necessarily creating a full floral boutonniere. I'm just creating kind of an abstract piece using the same petals of the roses from the bouquet, so I bring that color in and that same velvety texture into the boutonniere, but it's more abstract. Rose petals are a great thing to do that with. Orchid petals also work really well. In fact, that's what I made the sample out of. I actually had a permanent botanical orchid that was kind of rough looking, and it had a couple petals that were still nice, so I went ahead and used those for the sample piece. And you can do the same thing when you have just a few of the beautiful, but there's just a few of them. You can't use it as a full rose, but you can certainly use some of the petals because they're still nice and firm. They're not bruised or damaged, so you can go ahead and just use a couple of the petals. If you have an orchid that has several damaged petals to the blossom, go ahead and deconstruct those petals and use those as just the petals for color and texture in your pieces. So now we're going to come in with our feathers. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of move the little gems around. Make sure, I know this is something that's going to be all facing forward, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that now and move some of my gems so that they're all facing forward. I'm going to go ahead and give this a little cut because I don't need the full stem. Get my glue. I'm going to make sure I have glue all the way around. Just go ahead and insert that right into. I'm going to just go ahead and take my little finger and try to poke it in there and press it down so that I make sure I can feel that it touched the other glue. I can feel the connection, the bond, but I just want to make sure. So I'm just going to stick my little finger, or maybe you want to take your knife and just kind of press it in there and press down to make sure it's making a connection there. It's really important that we make sure it has that connection. I'm going to take one more little flutters, and in this one, I'm actually going to cut out the rhinestones because they're a little bit too tall and I want them down farther, so I'm going to just peel the feathers back and go ahead and cut off my little rhinestones here. Now I can go ahead and add my feather because I want to push that one down a little bit farther down in there. Okay, pick it back up. Just kind of put my finger there to make sure I don't get any glue on the feathers I've already put in there. And then just go ahead and insert that down in there and push it down in. Now you can see the texture of the rose petals is just peeking through a little bit, and that's really what the effect I was going for. But you certainly could come back in and add another layer of a petal here, or you could take like a little sweetheart rose and add that in front of the feathers. There's a lot of options that we can do here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and I'm going to curl it. Okay. Just give it a little more of a gluing pad here than just the straight, and by curling it up, it makes it just a little bit wider there, you can see, so that's where I can put my glue. And go ahead and insert that a little bit lower down in, because I want some of that bling to come down to the front as well. I don't want it all to be stuck up here. I wanted it to come graduate down. I didn't want it all to be up here, and if I would have left those in there, I probably could have bent them down, but then I have to deal with the stem, so cutting them off allows me to really have control of where I place them. Same thing. Quick couple little turns. Go ahead and insert that in there. And one more, the last one. The little sprays on these, the wires are soft enough that you can just go ahead and bend those with your fingers. Some of our items you really need the tool like the needle nose pliers to get in there and get that turned the right way. So however it works for you. We have those up at the top, we have them down a little bit lower. Now I want to go ahead and add some more movement into it. Remember on our sample we had the bear grass that comes over the front of it. Well, how we do that is we go ahead and take our piece and And even with the fresh bear grass, by running your fingernail along the spine of it, along the back of it, you can relax it a little bit. Or you can even get it to curl, but you can just kind of relax it. So it's not going to kink when you try to make a rounded edge to it. So do that. Just be very careful, because we know with bear grass, if you're using bear grass, it can give you a terrible cut. The edges are very sharp, but just go ahead and run your finger along it, your fingernail, or your, I wouldn't do the edge of your knife, but the back of your knife is another way if you're worried about cutting yourself, just to get something so it's a little bit more reflexed and a little more flexible to use. So then we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some of our glue to the front and the back of the end of the piece of bear grass. We're going to go ahead and insert it into the boutonniere piece, wherever we want it to be. I'm going to go right, mine's going right to the back. I've kind of moved my petals away, and I'm going right into the back here and insert it in. Then I'm going to bring it forward, and I kind of have to do a little test to see how far I want it to go. And I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to go ahead and add some glue here. So now I've added glue on both ends. I've inserted that. Now I'm going to come back with this, and I'm going to insert it into the bottom. And depending, it's really up to you how far you want the little texture and roundness to go. If you want it to stick way out or not, you just kind of have to play with it and have it stick out. That way we're adding texture, adding motion, adding dimension. Those are all important items in design, and especially when it comes to boutonniere work, I think, and corsage work. We have a tendency to just design so flat for these. And it really kind of makes our designs look boring, I think. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that process, because I just don't want one. It needs a couple to really emphasize that arch. And on this time, I'm actually going to kind of bring it through, because I kind of like that little crisscross look to it. And this one I want to be quite a bit shorter. So I'm going to go ahead and measure where I want it to go. Again, glue on both sides. The reason we want to do that is because we're not really sure where it's going to make that connection once it goes up inside that boutonniere holder. So we're going to, make sure we get that connection by putting glue on both sides of that stem. Go ahead and insert it in there. We've got a little bit of a crisscross. It's kind of hard to see on the dimension there on the camera, but there's a nice little crisscross here, adding a little bit more dimension and interest into the design. And then I'm going to finish it off by adding one little rose to the front of this so that it picks up the same elements that's in the bouquet. Get my glue on there, put it where I want it, pull it back, and stick it there. And I'm going to hold it there for just 1 second to make sure it makes that connection. And there we have our finished boutonniere. Any questions on the boutonniere? Okay, well, I do have a few other things I'd like to show you, because it just doesn't end when you're doing wedding work. I know we like to do the bouquets, but it doesn't stop there. A lot of our products will carry over to just about every aspect of your wedding needs, whether it be for the ceremony, whether it be for the reception. So I just kind of want to show you a few other things that we have and give you some ideas of different ways to use some Fitz product. Now we have the bride, and I'm going to kind of pull this back up so you can see me. Hello, everybody. And after after the ceremony, the bride puts her bouquet down, and then what does she have? She doesn't, normally carry the bouquet around with her for the rest of the night, but certainly we want to have things for her to have on that express her creativity and her individuality. And one way to do that, especially for the reception, and we know a lot of brides today have two dresses. They wear the ceremony dress and then they slip into something a little more fun and festive for the reception. So we should be asking those questions and offering pieces like this necklace for her to wear during her reception. What a fun way for her to, still have some beautiful accessories. Especially if she's got one of those lower cut off the shoulder type dresses. What a beautiful way to, still have some fun and bling for her reception. And we could do that in the necklace. This is a piece that was created using one of the bouquet wraps. We just lined it with some ribbon. And then we started layering different brooches and some of our foliages on top of it to create a lovely, beautiful, blinged out brooch necklace for her to wear for her reception. Another piece for her to wear, or this could also be a beautiful mother of the bride's piece, is a beautiful bracelet. This, you could still add that floral element into it, and in a sense, with the chains hanging and shimmering down from her wrist, it's very similar to a bouquet. But this would be another great reception accessory for her, so that she's still adorned, she's still accessorized, even for her reception. It's really important that we start adding those additional items, to start suggesting, because quite honestly, they might be thinking that they need another dress or another pair of shoes for the reception, but are we, as the professional floral designers, telling them they also need another floral accessory since they're not going to be carrying their bouquet? Or maybe this is done as a hairpiece and she pulls her hair back a different way, or takes her veil off and then it leaves her more of her hair exposed, so you'll want to add a hairpiece. So you should be suggesting those additional pieces. We teach it to you in our prom class that you should always be selling a third item. This is kind of the same concept. The bride's bouquet, the groom's boutonniere, and then her third item. It should be maybe something for the reception, so she's adorned for the reception. And something like that is, it's easy to wear, it's fun to wear, it has a fun bracelet. Then she has this keepsake that she can always remember that she wore that bracelet for her wedding reception. Couple other fun pieces. How about something for a bridesmaid or a flower girl? And I did something, this is my rendition of a pomander for the flower girl, and I made it using one of our Color Your World bracelets for her to hold. And this kind of has a twofold. It can be held just like a normal pomander using the bracelet, or especially when you've got those flower girls who are a little bit more, you can actually put it on them and it can be worn tight, and that way it's just a different look. It's kind of a fun look. It actually should be worn off to the side. And it's a huge corsage, I know, but on a tiny little flower girl wrist, it's a way for it to be secure so she knows she's not going to drop it. And I created this really just by taking our bracelet, and I actually removed the ultimate disc clip and the design disc from it and used the ribbon rosette streamers. And this is actually just a large, very fluffy bow underneath this. And I attached the bow using those streamers from our rosette onto the bracelet, and that held it very securely. And then I just started gluing in all my flowers into the loops of the bow, and then also my accessories. And here I did the same lacy leaf into it, and then I also did some of our accent sprays, the marquee accent sprays, just to add a little bit of the bling all the way around. And then to create the little tail, a strip of our Ocean of Diamonds, or actually it's the River of Diamonds. So it's, about 1.5 inches wide. And then I just fringed the ends. I don't have a piece of it here to show you. Fringed the ends. And what I did, because I am going to show you somehow, I can show you with this. It's this wide right here. And then I fringed the ends. And then I folded it in on itself. I just kind of folded it around to make a tube. And once I had the tube, I could then put the glue on the end and insert it right in, glue it right into the bow itself. And then it just had the nice little fringe that kind of shows movement. So when it walks down the aisle, it has that movement and flow to it. But I love the use of the bracelet as the way to hold it. It's decorative, and it's a great way to hold it.
Susie, can you talk about that construction one more time, a little slower?
Certainly. Yeah, I started with the bracelet, and then I removed the disc and the ultimate disc clip from it. So the two pieces, the mechanics that you would normally build your corsage on, I took those off. At first I thought I would use those to glue into, but they actually kind of got in the way, and it might have been my ribbon that did it, but I'm going to kind of just break it apart in here, and you can kind of see down in here. It's tied right into my bow. So I made a large fluffy bow out of the number 9 satin and then a number 3 kind of a sheer organza, and made my bow. So it was like a little round puff pomander already with the size of the bow. And then the little ribbon streamers that hold our design disc onto the bracelet, I unraveled those, removed the disc, and then I came back and used those streamers to tie around the bow. And I don't know if you'll be able to, let me see if I can get my fingers in here so you can see. Oh yeah, you can see right in here, real close, like there's one of the little ribbon streamers from the rosette. I just tied those right around my ribbon. They're just tied tight, so it held the corsage, the bracelet, onto the ball that I made out of the ribbon.
Yeah, one of the trends we're seeing is what people are calling wrist bouquets. And this could be the start of creating a wrist bouquet. You'd want to add some length or some distance between the wristlet and the bouquet, but this is something that is becoming more and more popular, and we're getting requests for it on a regular basis now.
You could actually just go ahead and do another bracelet on top of it. And that way, that would be the one that you would, especially for a young, like I said, this is a flower girl, so for a flower girl, it's a lot different. You wouldn't have it look quite so tight as it does when I put it on. And you could obviously make it smaller, but if you would take another bracelet and extend it one more on top of this, then you could insert and wear it that way, and that way it would hang and still have that pendulum look and still have the movement to it. So, and like Dan said, we're seeing a lot of the corsages, which is kind of what inspired this. It's kind of a cross between a corsage and a bouquet when it hangs down from the wrist. But using the bracelets, I think, I've always made them where I've just taken an extra ribbon loop, and it's pretty, but this is even prettier. And then they have another keepsake bracelet, because this can be cut out of here, and then they have the bracelet if they want to wear it after.
And adding another bracelet could add a whole different look. So if you wanted to add a rhinestone bracelet on top of that, you'd be able to add some bling into it or some sparkle. You'd be able to use 2 different bracelets to match the 2 different colors, so you could add a lavender or a blue in there to pick up the colors of your bouquet. Add other bracelet. That's a really neat idea.
Yeah. At first I thought I was just going to use the ribbon, and then I cut the ribbon out because I thought, wait a minute, I could use some River of Diamonds to make my loop. And then I thought, well, if I'm using River, why can't I use a bracelet? So just kind of like the whole thought process myself, and I love the way the bracelet turned out, and it's a nice, secure way to hold it. And you could do 2 or 3 or 4 depending on how far you wanted it to go, but certainly it's a good start to something where I know that all of you are thinking, oh, I could do this, I could do that. So if you think of something, share it with us, because we want to know too. We learn from you. So if this has inspired you in some way, inspire us. Let us know, and maybe we'll show it in our next class. A couple other pieces that I wanted to show you. I don't know if you're familiar or not with our embracers, but we have a great line. They're elastic bands that come in an array of sizes that go around a lot of different types of vases. And this is just basic. I mean, here you are. You have a vase, and we all know we have a lot of cylinder vases and we have a lot of cube vases, and we've used them over and over again, and we've taped things around them. We've done that. Well, now you don't have to tape it because it's already here. It's like a little sleeve that goes onto your vases to enhance them and give them a new, fresh look. It adds a lot of bling and a lot of perceived value. But another way to use our embracers is you can put them on candles. You can make a beautiful unity candle out of one of the embracers in just a few little enhancements. Here again, I just added a layer of the gold river of diamonds. One of our delicious jewels, the heart, I think is perfect for weddings. And then a few little blossoms glued to it. Just, again, those layers, those textures. But the embracers work great to accent candles, whether it's a unity candle or just accent candles that you're using on the altar or maybe on the cake table or even down the center of the buffet table or even your guest tables. Take a look at the embracers, and they can go directly on some of the unique size and shapes of candles that are out there. And then you can go ahead and get creative and enhance them however you want to that accent the wedding that you're doing. And then also, of course, we've got a lot of little napkin ring treatments we can do. One thing I love to do is give keepsakes, and especially if you have assigned seating. I love this idea of here is a napkin ring, which is actually a bracelet with just a little adornment. I just took a little sliver of the river of diamonds and dovetailed it, glued that right over the design disc, and then 2 dendrobium orchids on it. So for the table place where the woman is sitting, the napkin ring is this. Where the man is sitting, the napkin ring is this. And that's just on one of our design discs. And it would just easily fold the napkin, use the magnet to hold it on. Then, instead of just taking off the napkin ring and throwing it into the center of the table, now every woman and every man has flowers to wear. So if you're going to do keepsakes and you're going to do, the little favors, and hopefully you are suggesting these types of things, and maybe you can't, your bride can't afford to do this on every single table, but she could afford to do these maybe on the parents' tables or special guest tables or the head table. Think of ways to start introducing these items into your services and your products that you have to offer. If you don't offer them, they don't know that you can do that. So during your consultation, it's important for you to gather all the information. Are you having, will you have, your guests assigned seats, or will they not? Are you going to thinking of doing favors for all your guests at their place setting? If so, we have some great ideas and some options for you. And this is a perfect way that every man and every woman at the party will be wearing your flowers. Let's see, I just have a couple other quick little napkin rings. Again, it's just our river of diamonds. And honestly now, these were made before, excuse me, my nose is starting to itch. These were made before we had our embracer line in, but we have a little votive embracer. And it's elastic. All our embracers are elastic. So you could do the same thing with our votive embracer. And then just add a little something to it. Again, I just added that strip going so when it's on there, you're going to see that. And then I have another little piece here that I fringed just to give it some fun movement, and then added one of our little brooches, and I just pinned it right to the top of it. So this can actually come off. They can wear the pin afterwards as, again, another little keepsake and another little napkin ring idea where you can go ahead and make your own, or you can use our embracer for our votive candle embracers. Another idea for a napkin ring, this idea here, it's really just 2 strips glued together. These are so quick and easy to use. And what's inside here, there is a pipe cleaner that runs along the inside, so that makes it bendable. And so you have this strip, it's fringed. You can make 2 different colors. Here it's red and black. Our River of Diamonds comes in so many different colors that just about any color palette your bride has, we can accent it. Or you can even do it here. I did it with the river, and then I did it with the burlap. You know, burlap and bling go together. So, you know, if we're still having those brides come in asking for burlap, why not add a little bling to it? But all 3 of these were made by just two sides, inserting and gluing. I just actually run a bead of glue down 2 sides of the chenille stem, lay it down flat, put the other piece over, and then a little bit of glue on either corner, and then you just wrap this around your napkin, and it creates a nice little accent in a way to enhance, a really inexpensive, quick way to enhance the napkins. And again, if you can't do it on every guest table, you certainly can do it on the parents' table and the head table and some of those special tables, and at least get it out there that you have things like this to offer, that you're creative, that you're innovative, and that you're looking out for your bride's best interest, because we want to keep her coming back. She has friends who are going to get married. We want them to come back to you, and we know we're going to have anniversaries and birthdays and all kinds of celebrations for your brides and grooms to come back and shop at your store. So those are my ideas for weddings. Do we have any other questions? It's a quiet group this morning. Well, okay, if there's no other questions for me as far as design go, if you do come up with something, you think of something along the line, you can always email me or email the office with your questions, and we'll make sure we get back to you. We want, like I said, we want to make sure that you're learning as much as you can, and that you don't walk away from our webinars wondering, how did they do that? What did she say? You can always rewatch the webinars on YouTube. So, you know, we're here for you, and go ahead and make sure you reach out to us whenever you need us. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I'm going to turn the webinar over to Dan Fisher. He has a great marketing segment in store for you. He's going to challenge you like he always does, and he's going to help you kind of work through the process of, where do I want to be with my wedding work? Where do I want to take my wedding business? So thank you for joining me this morning. I hope I see some of you this afternoon for our Top It Off hairpiece webinar. And for those of you who are not going to be joining us, we'll see you on YouTube. Thanks a lot, and goodbye, everybody.
Hey, Susie, you got a pretty busy travel schedule the next few weeks, and you're going to be out across the country. How about take a minute and tell everybody where you're going to be? If they're in your area, they may want to come see you.
Oh, absolutely. I am going to be on hitting the road very shortly. And next week, starting Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to be in Chicago. We've been invited by the North Central region of AIFD to join them for their spring meeting at the Chicago Flower and Garden Show. So if any of you are in the Chicagoland area and you want to stop by the Chicago Flower and Garden Show, we have a hands-on prom traditions class we're going to be teaching. That's 3 hours long on Saturday morning, starting, I believe, at 9 o'clock. You can actually go to the AIFD website and the North Central chapter page and register if you want to join us there. We're also doing a wedding stage program for the entire Chicago Flower and Garden Show. So there's going to be a lot of retail florists there, as well as the general public, kind of learning what the trends are for weddings. After that, I head right on to Dallas. We're doing a hands-on class in Dallas on Tuesday the 17th, I believe it is. Yes, Tuesday the 17th. Then it's on to Lubbock, and we're going to be doing a class in Lubbock on prom for, let's see, that is on Thursday. And then Friday we're in Midland, Odessa for another prom workshop. And then we end up still in Odessa on Sunday, where we're doing a sympathy program for the West Texas, New Mexico Association. So if you're in anywhere in Texas at the end of next week, we hope that, or actually 2 weeks from now, the 17th through the 22nd. You can join us there. I hope to see you there. Come and introduce yourself to me. And then the following week, Dan and I will be at Illinois State the ISFA convention in Decatur, Illinois. Dan and I will be doing a day-long wedding and marketing workshop. It's like a boot camp. It starts at 9 in the morning, and we've got you all day till 4 o'clock. And then we are doing a sympathy program on Saturday. So if at the end of the month, if you're in the lower Illinois area or Missouri or anywhere where you're near, you can drive over to Decatur. We'd love to see you in Decatur at the Illinois State Floral Association's show. We're excited to be making the rounds this spring, and if we're not near you and you want us to be near you, let us know and get involved and let us know where you're at, because we're everywhere. And if it's not myself or Dan, it's one of our other team members. So if you're wondering where Fitz Design is going to be, ask us and we'll point you in their direction and get you to one of our classes or one of our programs, because we'd love to meet you and hear what you're doing with our Fitz Design products. That's it. That's it for me until this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you, Susie. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to pop up a quick poll for you. Kind of want to get your thoughts on your feeling about the next few months of wedding work, and so take a look at this. Give us some quick responses, and then we'll move right into to the marketing segment here. Okay, thank you. While we went through a little bit of technical difficulties there. This is going to be a little different. This is going to be a little different than some of the other marketing presentations. This is actually a two-part presentation. We'll do the second part in a couple of weeks. But what I want to do is, you know, I talk about goals and I talk about plans a lot. And we're going to do that again. But I'm also going to challenge you.
Stop sharing your screen and then share it over again. Your PowerPoint didn't come up for any of us.
Okay, well, now everybody just heard that. Okay, can somebody tell me if this is working?
It is
Hold on
working.
1 minute. It is working. Okay.
It is working now.
I apologize. For some reason, my computer doesn't seem to ever work when we go to do these things. Anyway, let me start over. You may have heard what I said, not necessarily seen the PowerPoint, but I think it's probably just easier to start from the beginning. This is a two-part program. We're going to cover the second part in a couple of weeks. And you know I talk about goals and plans. And today I'm going to spend some time really challenging you with some detailed questions about your wedding work and your plan and where you want your wedding business to go. So we're going to look at a few details. We'll talk about some challenging questions. And at the end, I'm going to show you an amazing tool that I created a number of years ago that is dynamically successful and will really help grow your sales in every area that you look to use it. And it's called the inverted pyramid. So again, let me talk a little bit about what we're going to do. It is about causing you to think and to be challenged and to look at the direction you want to go. Are you in the market the way you want to be? Are you growing in the areas that you want to grow in? Are you cutting back in areas that you shouldn't be? So a lot of questions about challenging you. Then here's some things we're not going to talk about. We're not going to talk about pricing. We never do. We don't know your market. So I can't answer the questions. I don't know how much you pay for your flowers. I don't know about your overhead. Overhead for somebody in New York City is not the same as the overhead for someone in Iowa, so we really are unable to talk about pricing. We won't talk about pricing. We're not going to talk about how to handle the mother of the bride. Sorry, I don't have 12 hours to work on that. We're not going to do that today. We're not going to talk about handling consultations today. And we're also not going to talk about how to fix all the problems that happen and occur with the wedding. We're going to stay focused more on the marketing aspect. I share the numbers with you about prom, so I want to share the numbers with you about wedding. Each year, and these numbers, by the way, are from 2013. The 2014 numbers don't appear to have been released. 2013, there were 2.1 million weddings. The average wedding ran 25,000. The total amount spent on weddings in the United States for 2013, $54.3 billion. Average number of guests between 126 and 136. $54.3 billion, and the question I always follow up with is, are you getting your share? So let's start talking about your goal for your wedding business. And as we tend to do, come back and talk a little bit about plans and the planks that help you put together your goal. So some of the quick things we're going to look at is, do you have a specific goal? Do you know what percentage of your business you want to be wedding business? Is that a 10% number, a 20% number? Are you someone who's 100% vested only in weddings?
but what percentage of your business do you want to be weddings? And then are you putting that same amount of time, effort, and energy into it? If you want weddings to be 20% of your business, are you spending 20% of your time, effort, and energy and marketing ideas in taking care of maintaining and growing that 20%? We're going to talk a little bit about profit. What do you want your profit percentages to be? Are you happy with what you're doing? How many weddings do you want to do each week? I hear it over and over, year after year, that a particular group of weekends have a lot of weddings. Folks try and do them all, and inevitably there's some of them that they're not able to handle, and they end up turning out poorly. So is there the plan and the discipline ahead of time to say, we want to do this many weddings a week. We know when our peak times are, when we might have to reach out and hire some extra help. And then the larger group of that is, after you ramp that up, how many weddings a year do you want to do? And again, if you determine that you want to do 100 weddings a year, are you planning and marketing and advertising and doing the steps that you need to do to be able to have 100 weddings a year? And then next is, what size do you want? What size do you do best? And we'll talk a little bit about that. So here's a question for you to think about. Why should a bride come to you for their wedding? And it can't just be design, but take some time to think about this question. If I'm talking to a potential bride and you want me to recommend your shop and your store, what is it that I'm going to tell them about why they should come to you? And this should be a detailed answer. This is not going to be a one-word answer. But this would be my first question for you to think about and work about. I'd love to see your email answers to each of these questions, so feel free to send me an email with your answers or your thoughts. But when you answer this question, this is going to do two things for you, and this really helps to become a defining moment about your wedding business. One is it's going to tell you what you really believe your strengths are, that a bride should come to you for this group of reasons because this is what you do and you do really, really well. Now, one of the things I like to do, and the folks who work with me on product development watch me do this often, is to take the item and turn it upside down or turn it around and look at it from the back or turn it sideways and look from different aspects. So let's take the answer to that question. What do you do really well? Why should a bride come to you? And then my challenge to you is, okay, you've got that established. Now what's missing? What's not there? Which in essence you're saying these are the reasons they shouldn't necessarily come to us. So what you've done when you answered this question is you've identified your strengths and you've identified your weaknesses, and now you have an opportunity to work and make each one of them stronger. One of the things that happens often where people miss it is they identify their weaknesses and they begin to work on them. But if you don't protect your strengths, then one of the things you find out later is your strengths can also become your weaknesses. So look at what's not on that list and begin to add some focus to it, and how do we ramp it up and make it better. But then the same question I'm going to ask you about your strengths, look at that question and then say, how do we make those even better? So look at that question from both of those perspectives and let me know what your thoughts are. As I'm listening to florists across the country, I hear some interesting things that really kind of boil down to this question. What size of weddings do you do best? You may or may not have the staff to do a giant wedding. You may or may not have the staff to do a little wedding. But do you know what your niche is? Do you know what it is that you're good at in that particular group? And if you know that you're really good at a wedding that has 10 tables and 4 bridesmaids and 4 groomsmen, and that's what you're really good at, then that's also where you want to be able to market. And you also know when somebody comes through the door with something different than that, you're either going to be very, very good at it because it's smaller, or if it's larger, you may need to look at how do you address that because it's not one of your strengths areas. So you may need to look at getting other help or work with another florist depending on how big it is. But can you look yourself in the mirror and say, this is what I know, our size is what we're really, really good at. So even when you're doing wedding shows or other types of, if you're doing an event in your shop, you're doing marketing, you know the target of the group that you want to get. It's that group that meets that criteria specifically about what size are you really good at. And again, going back to that question, look at that group that's really good at what your strengths are. And if someone walks in and everything they tell you is what your weakness is, you really might be better to say to them, I'm not the one to do that for you. But at the same time, work on getting your weaknesses stronger so that you're able to capitalize on more of those. Now, at the same time, I want you to ask the same questions about your staff. What are the strengths and what are your weaknesses of your staffs? Again, when I'm talking to florists about weddings across the country, here's something I hear said in a number of different ways, but in essence they'll say, my gal who's really good at bouquets, I had to do the boutonnieres and they were awful because you took the person away from their strength and you put them on their weakness, and then you're frustrated and banging your head going, why did that happen? And if you thought about it, you know why it happened, because you took somebody away from their strength and put it onto their weakness. So now when it comes to planning and organizing, getting ready for the event, you know how to schedule your people. If there's a bunch of bouquets, you know that you've got to schedule extra time for your strength bouquet person. If there's a lot of things like Susie showed you, the napkin rings, which are really kind of mini boutonnieres, there's a lot of those. You need to make sure that you schedule that person. Or if those people each need extra help, then you know how to be able to plan for that. So if you take the different components of a wedding and you break them down into a half a dozen different things, and then evaluate your staff accordingly. Are they good at bouquets? Are they good at reception arrangements? Are they good at arbors? Are they good at pew markers? Are they good at napkin rings? Are they good at boutonnieres? And maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, give them a ranking so that you know when you get in a pinch where you want to be able to move those to. Now there's two different things to be careful about looking at this. One of them is just because they have a great attitude doesn't mean they make great bouquets. So you love and appreciate their attitude, but just because they're a great team player doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the great at designing that same thing that you want. Then as you've established and looked at what your strengths are, make sure that you're exploiting those strengths. Look for those types of weddings. Go to events that promote those types of strengths so that you're putting your best in front of the people who are looking to take advantage of your best. The average wedding in the U.S., $25,200. As a basic rule, flowers average between 8 to 10% of the wedding. So are your flower budgets in line? When a bride is sharing with you her budget and then tells you what her flower budget is, are you getting the right amount? If you're getting more, that's great, but if you're getting less, there's nothing wrong to say to them, okay, you've told me that your budget is $20,000. Based on that, your flowers should be running no less than $2,000. If they come into you with $1,000 worth of flowers, if you're sharing this with them, that in general, to look like everybody else is a minimum, she should have about $2,000 on a $20,000 budget, then you're being a counselor, you're being an advisor, you're making sure that here's a segment of your wedding maybe you haven't understood or you haven't looked at the costs, to make sure that for this size wedding, this is where you should be in general budget, so that you're an advisor, you're a counselor to the bride and helping her with this. Now, I'm going to take a detour here for a minute about this counselor and advisor thing. I'm on Facebook from time to time, and I'm a member of a number of groups. And I'll tell you, one of the things that frustrates me is to look at the number of florists who go on Facebook and complain about a bride or a family that came in because they shared their dream and then they told you what the budget was and those two didn't line up. I have to, from my perspective, believe that there's two things that are going on here. When that happens, that family or that bride does not understand the pricing of flowers, and they don't understand the amount of labor it goes in to making that dream to be just right. So what I'd like to see is more people doing less venting with 50, 60, 70 comments and do more sharing with them. Here, let me help you understand why those prices really aren't realistic. You know, I'd like to have a Mercedes-Benz for $5,000, but it doesn't work that way. When you understand all of the technology that goes into it, the engineering, the cost of it just isn't there. So I'd like to see less venting and more being a counselor, being an advisor, doing some more sharing. And just because you think you're in a group does not mean that one person doesn't share that with somebody else. I'll share a personal example with you. We had originally scheduled an event at King's Wholesale this weekend. It was an all-day event with a design show, two hands-on classes, two-hour hands-on classes, a 2-hour marketing seminar, a contest, design contest. We were going to make 9 projects. And so we posted it on Facebook in a number of the groups. Sunday afternoon, I'm sitting here working at my desk, and the phone rings, and a lady calls and says, I'd like to sign up for the program at King's, which, by the way, has been canceled because we only had 5 shops to sign up and only 3 to actually take care of the registration. And so the lady says to me, I'd like to go to the program at King's. I'd like to register. So write down her name and then say to her, okay, tell me the name of your shop. And she said, well, I don't have a shop. But someone I know posted about this on their Facebook page, and I thought it would be fun, and that's why I came. So be careful that you don't think that everything that's posted in a private group stays in a private group. Protect your words very carefully. Okay, so back to the question. How much is your average wedding? How much work do you have to do to put into the planning of that? Is this something that's very fluid for you? Is it something you have to spend a good amount of detail on? Are your weddings tend to be very, very detailed? Or are you some of those that have the brides that say, just make it beautiful and these are the colors that I'm looking for? When you understand the size of your average wedding, how does that work into your staffing? Are you panicked while you're trying to get sympathy pieces out, everyday arrangements, and your wedding at the same time? If you understand your average, then your staffing for that average and your timeline, you can look at putting all of that out together at the same time. Same thing for your advertising. If you know that your average wedding, again, I'm just going to make up an example, is a bride, 4 bridesmaids, 10 tables, and some pew designs, then make sure that you're targeting your advertising and your marketing to that income level, that size group. You don't necessarily want to go into the magazine that promotes the biggest, fanciest weddings and do some promoting there, because if you land that, you may have difficulty making it all happen. So do you understand where your strength is? And since you're going to take the time to look at that, make sure that you put your marketing efforts, your advertising efforts to where you're going to find that group of people. If you're doing a wedding show, you may ask them, they come and stop by your booth, and this entourage comes. Or this little couple comes, and it's a small wedding. Maybe easy for you to do because your average is stronger than that, but at the same time, if you've got a number of them already scheduled that are in your strength, adding more to it that takes away from your strength may not be wise for you to do. The other is to ask your question, is it the right size for you? And there's 3 things that enter into this, and we'll talk about them a little bit. Those three things is it right from staffing? Is it right from budget? And is it right for your profits? Are you in the right size wedding for the staffing, the strengths, the skills, and all the things that you have? Then you want to be able to look at that, understand your average, and ask yourself, now how am I going to grow? Where am I going to find that? You can either look at different ways to grow, continue to do more of what you do really well, or, like we talked about, find your weaknesses, strengthen those, and then begin to market to a different group of people that allows you to do more of those types of things. It's really not fair to experiment or learn on somebody's actual wedding that you're paying for. Your education, preparation, additional knowledge is something you need to be doing, working on your own, getting ready for, not necessarily experimenting it on a bride or on a family that have hired you to actually do their wedding. I present about weddings around the country a few times, and a comment that I hear often is, we have a really good wedding business, but we don't make any money. And my response back to them is, well, then you don't have a very good wedding business. If you keep doing the same thing and you're not getting any money out of it, any profits out of it, then you need to evaluate what it is that you're looking at. So if you're doing a specific size wedding regularly, have you looked at all of the numbers to see whether or not you're charging for everything that you should be and you really do have a profit on it? There are so many things that get given away because they're small details that aren't paid attention to, but they add up and add up and add up. So take a few minutes, find your last wedding, find your last 2 or 3 weddings. If you can find the pictures, look at the pictures, and then ask yourself, did we do this really well? And then did we charge for all of the things that we did, whether it was setup, whether it was tear down, whether it was to stay there, to pin on the boutonnieres, for delivery, if you charge for consultation, for your design planning. All of those things have a cost to them, and looking at that cost and adding it into it, then looking at what you sold the wedding for and coming back and saying, did I really make any profit into it? The two things that I find when I talk to people most often is they didn't look at all the details and they didn't charge or price for all of the things that are included. Did you include time for your vehicle? Did you include driving time? Did you include the extra time for your staff? Did you look at your flower cost well? Did you take into account your waste? If you charge for consultation, has that been added into it? Even if you don't charge for consultation, when you're evaluating your numbers, you need to put that in as a cost. It's still a cost that you generated to get that wedding, and you need to include that in as a cost. No, you may not charge for it, but yes, it is something that had a time and a cost involved in it to help you gain that sale. Now, we're not necessarily advising on all of this. I'm just asking these questions. I want you to think about it. These are the things I hear as I travel around the country. So take a look at them and ask yourself, are they working for you? And the broader umbrella question is, if your profits aren't right on your wedding work, why not? And that's really what you're asking yourself. So like I said, many times people say we have a great wedding business, but we're not making any money on them. And if that's the case, you really don't have a great wedding business. You may have fun playing with flowers, but you're not making any profits in it. So, one of the things about finding out about the budget, to get a feel about what their budget is, there are two schools of thoughts on this. One is to just ask them up front. And there's nothing wrong with asking that question, even though often we feel timid and afraid to. But how much is your budget? The other is to, and this is the approach that I like, is just to say to the bride, you know what, tell me about your wedding. Tell me what your dream is like. And listening to those things. Generally, the bigger the dream, you're more likely to have the bigger the budget. But remember, your goal is to make her dream come true. Now, not your dream, but her dream. Now, if her dream is to have big, fancy, expensive arrangements and big, fancy, expensive flowers, and it doesn't fit in her budget, then you take that role of being the guide, the counselor, and say, okay, I can help you with the color palette, but I can't help you with the flower choices at the prices you're looking for. I can't help you with that size, but we can get something that's just as attractive. So what are the things that you can do to help make her dream come true? And that's really the strength of what it is that you're looking to do. Listen to the dream. I actually think it's a good idea. Grab the groom. Listen to his dream. See if he's got the same one or not. My daughter's getting married April 11th in Cincinnati, and we've had a lot of fun working on her wedding. And we've gone back to Andrew often and said, okay, Andrew, what do you think about this? And so Kara has picked her dream bouquet, and we're going to fix that for her. But she really couldn't explain what she really wanted on the tables. Andrew went on the internet, found just an amazing picture of these very creative centerpiece ideas that fit their personality. It's very herbal, very loose, not a lot of formal design or format to it, and he really helped to tag it perfectly. Now we're going out and getting those pieces and begin to put it together. One of the interesting things is often the groom is uncomfortable in this process, but the more he's involved in it, the more comfortable he gets. Don't forget, you want all of these people involved in the wedding to be your customers for the future. You want that groom to be comfortable to pick up the phone and call you down the road and say, I'm groom so-and-so, you did our wedding, and I need to order some flowers for my bride. Get to know them, get to be comfortable with them. This is another way to find out about the budget. We talk about this in prom, and it really applies to the same thing about wedding. Ask him about the dress. And here's a couple of cues. When she begins to tell you about the dress, she's going to give you a pretty good example. And again, listening for the cues, and here's a couple of interesting cues. If you don't live in a major city and the bride says, we went to Chicago, LA, New York, somewhere, dress shopping, you've got a pretty good idea that they've got a good deal of money. The second cue you listen for is if they did that and they say, and Daddy came with us, then you know this is Daddy's girl, and you know that this budget is likely to be stronger and higher. One of the things that florists do often is we assume that the budget is much lower than it is. But if the gal told you she bought a David's bridal dress on the $99 dress sale, you got a pretty good idea of what her budget is. But if she's also told you that they've flown to New York and Daddy went with them and they spent the weekend doing dress shopping, there's a pretty good chance that you've got a pretty strong budget to be able to work with and design with. Okay, this is important. I've had this for many, many years, and I had only shared it with a couple of people, and I shared this with Tom Bowling one day, and Tom said, you have got to share this with more people. I've kept this very private. But I want to try and talk to you about a different way of selling your wedding flowers. It goes back to tell me the dream. As she tells you the dream, or even to go through the different categories, tell me about your centerpieces. Tell me about your pew designs. Tell me about your altar designs. How is the church going to be decorated? Listen to her dream. And when you do, identify which segment of her dream is likely to have the most amount of flowers in it. Now, here's what most florists do. They want to start with the bouquet. It's what you like to do. That's what she's there for. But if you talk about the bouquet first, it's pretty difficult for anything else to get to be more elaborate or fancier than the bouquet. But let's take, again, a random example that she's telling you about the reception, and there is flowers everywhere. It is gorgeous, and it's beautiful. You want to make sure that you capture those flower dollars before you lose any of it or before it gets shrunk. You want the biggest dollars first. So if the reception flowers are likely to be the biggest, I would start my consultation there. If her church flowers are very elaborate, I would start my consultation there. I would capture what's the most important first to make sure I've got all of that and then build for it. Now, I share this concept. Some people love it. Some people tell me I'm nuts, but I am a firm believer in this. The very last thing you talk to her about is her bouquet. And I used the same example that I've used in a number of other places. If you go into the grocery store, where is the milk? All the way in the back in one corner. Where is the bread? All the way in the back in the other corner. And if you're going to go into the store and do nothing but milk and bread, you have to see all the rest of the things in the store, and you have to walk right by the most expensive department in the store, in the grocery store, which is the meat department. So if you know she is not leaving until she gets her bouquet done, that's another reason not to do it first. Because when she's done with that, everything else may begin to diminish and not to spend as much time with it. But if you've worked with her and you've created these gorgeous reception pieces and these beautiful large church pieces, and you've decorated the limo and a bunch of other things very large and very elaborate, now you can easily say to her, you know that your bouquet is the centerpiece. It's got to be even better than these things that we've already done. I talked to a number of people, and those that have changed this concept to you do the bride's bouquet last have seen their sales go up dramatically. Capture the dollars. That's what you're there for, is to get the dollars. Capture the dollars first, and then work your way down to the smaller pieces. Now, here's where the inverted pyramid really begins to create its magic, is what's missing. So you've gone through the big stuff, whatever she said her big stuff is, reception flowers, limo, a carriage. You've gone through and you've captured all the big stuff. Now you want to make sure that you're beginning to get the little stuff that you haven't talked about. So maybe now, and I have a checklist that we'll work on in the next presentation, who are all the people that really need corsages and boutonnieres that you haven't talked to? Yeah, you've done the mother of the bride, but what about the mother of the groom? What about a special group of guests that are coming, a teacher? If you just say to them, you know what, the limo driver needs a boutonniere, the worst thing that's going to happen to you is I don't think he needs one, but at the same time, that your best thing could happen to you would be to say, you're right, he should have one too. And to go through all of the potential people that could have corsages and boutonnieres. If they didn't put any decorations on their pews, didn't do pew markers, this is a place to now begin to talk about pew markers. Here's where you can begin to take the ideas that you work with, that you like, that you're very good at, that weren't part of her dream, and let her know, well, wait a minute, what if we do this? What if we put flowers on the limo? What if we do rehearsal night dinner flowers? What if we do flowers for the grandparents or special guests that are coming from out of town? What if, as the groom sends a special flower arrangement to the mother of the bride? And you can go through and now begin to create some different ideas that they hadn't thought about, that you're really good at, and begin to rebuild the momentum again. And as you do that, you're going to find the first little thing I can start with, and then the more enthusiasm they have, keep building to it, building to it, building to it, building to it. If each one of these segments is gathering a larger dollar amount of your weddings, and you focus on getting the biggest amount of dollars first, not the bouquet, because the bouquet is rarely the biggest dollar amount. But to get the biggest dollar amounts first, and she's not going anywhere until you help her put her bouquet together. Okay, I think that, oh, I'm sorry, a couple of things. We just talked about this. My suggestion is to ask for, to do the bouquets at the end. So let's do a quick review here. What is your goal? What percentage, what segment of your business do you want weddings to be in your shop? What is that goal? Then begin to break it down by the week, by the number of weddings. So if you know that you want to do $100,000 in weddings and you want to do 50 weddings a year, you know that you have to have an average of $2,000. Any below that, you know you've got to pick them up somewhere else by picking up those that are above average. If you're not getting your average, then you know early on, I need to be able to get more. What do you want your profit percentages to be? And then take that and apply it to your averages and say, okay, I should be generating this much profit based on having this percentage against my average, then we should be able to do this. How many do you want to do in a week for scheduling and planning? How many does your staff allow you to do and do really well? How many do you want to do in a year? Again, think about what size are you really good at. We talk about this often. Make sure that everything is revolving around your goal and that your scheduling and your working is working towards your goal. And if it's not working towards your goal, then make sure that you're making course corrections along the way. Okay, this is where we're going to stop for today. The second segment of this comes up on March the 24th when Susie's going to do brooch bouquets on the morning of the 24th, and we'll do the second segment of wedding marketing at that point. Okay, what questions can I answer? Okay, well, if there aren't any questions, that's where we'll end today. I'd love for you to email me your comments, your goals, how this will work for you. You're always welcome to get in touch with us. Call me on the phone, give me an email. I'd love to hear more about what you think about this. So feel free to get in touch with us. We have another one this afternoon in 2 hours at 3 o'clock where we'll be doing, Susie said hair pieces. That made me a little nervous, almost like it was a toupee or something. But we are doing hair design this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So we look forward to seeing you this afternoon and at future webinars down the way. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great day.